Grace, peace, and blessings in the mighty name of Lord Jesus Christ. So I am re-listening to the 4 Hour Work Week, and it's I'm listening to the audio book version. I can't remember the actor's name, the narrator's name. He does such a good job, and that book is such a time capsule because I don't know if all of it is really true. I don't know if the testimonials that Tim Ferriss describes, or even if the points of his life is real. Does he even have parents? Is he a clone that was created in a lab with the Illuminati? Because so his book was originally published in 2007, and then he did an edit in 2009, and that is a whole universe away of of Earth, right? Because in 2026, so we're what, 16 years, if my math is right, um, or whatever. Actually, maybe is it more like 20 or 18 years or 19? Anyway, sorry about the math thing. But so it's like maybe 20 years, about thereabouts, or maybe less, 17 years. And what I keep here, so yeah, work. Why is the workplace made so unpleasant? Because that the 4 hour work week, the title sold itself, because the workplace was so exhausting, so depleting, so unfairly compensated. Rents couldn't keep up with, uh, or wages didn't keep up with rent. I mean, like, when if it's true, like, Tim Ferriss had roommates. Okay, the only reason why you have roommates is because you wanted to only pay 400, 500 a month in a rental, and not 1,500, 2,000 all on you. And that doesn't include your utilities and all the other household stuff that you need, your furniture and your pots and pans and stuff like that. So even he, and I don't know how if he even remembers what it was like to be on a budget. And but I just think it's in the testimonials of people who are saying how the book changed their lives. They're all talking about their friends and their family, and doing things, spending more time with their family and friends, and doing fun things and stuff like that. And if you look at today, in at least from what I observe in the United States in 2026, um, friends and family are so alienated, have been pitted against each other. Like, the people, the ideal audience of the 4 hour work week are it doesn't exist anymore, because you have to be a trans in order to be politically correct. Like, Tim Ferriss is probably going to have to rewrite his book, where there's no pronouns. There's no men. He's not a man anymore. Like, one of the people talked about biometric scanning at their workplace, and I think that's predictive programming. I think Tim Ferriss is a predictive programming guy. He was before Joe Rogan. I think Joe Rogan stole Tim Ferriss's thunder. I wonder what Tim Ferriss thinks about it. Like, did Tim Ferriss was he like, oh my god, this is so unfair that this goofball Joe Rogan has a show and is like super famous? And yes, Tim Ferriss is a higher level or whatever. But anyway, but the values, just the unasked for values, the unquestioned values in the 4 hour work week, that there's men and women, that there's families, and that you want your children to be safe and not kidnapped to be molested by adults, and where the government says that we have to put um, perverts desires ahead of children's safety and ahead of the family choices, because we have since learned, I think it was last year, that Child Protective Services in the United States is the biggest child trafficker in this country. And like before the lockdowns, before you were forced to hide your identity with those items. So if you're kidnapping children for trafficking, to do this and then put on a shield or something like that, and then you're the kidnapper also. I mean, like, masks are what bandits wear. Masks are what criminals wear. And like like listening to the 4 Hour Work Week makes me nostalgic because we did not know what we had then. And again, I ask why, it's I believe that the workplace is made so unpleasant as a form of human sacrifice. I believe that bad managers are put into place as a form of torture for employees because employees just want to be able to take care of their rent, their food, their needs. But they put the fluorescent lights in and they put the carpet in with all the off-gassing, or the linoleum with all the toxic off-gassing. And then they put you in with machines, Xerox machines or other kind of machines that expose you to major levels of toxins. And, unless you're in with Flynn, unless you're benefiting from nepotism, you don't get a great job with health insurance with a doctor who actually takes care of you. Like, if they're allowed to. I mean, doctors can't tell you about legitimate concerns like Lyme disease, or else they'll lose their license. And if people have any doubts, just remember the 2020 scamdemic, where the only thing that you're allowed to be diagnosed with was, like, if you passed away, if you died, or if you were executed by the trusted agents of the public good, you were listed as a coronavirus death, because each state got up to 300,000, maybe I've heard 500,000, so 500,000. So would people take you out for $500,000 if you killed one person for $500,000, killed two people for $1,000,000? Do you think hospitals would reject that opportunity? No, they did not. The majority of deaths were in the U.S. and the U.K. And in what place? It was in nursing homes and hospitals. That's where the majority of deaths were, in the U.S. and U.K., in nursing homes and hospitals. We did not find millions of people dead from the fake virus in their bed. We did not find millions of people dead from the fake virus in homeless shelters, in homeless encampments. No, we didn't. No, because hospitals and nursing homes made up to $500,000 for each person they killed. And there's also a story about how hospitals took out life insurance on the patient. They killed the patient, and the insurance company paid the hospital. I think it was like Apollo something. I don't know if it was Apollo Insurance or Apollo Hospital, but if you know your Bible, Apollyon is Satan. So anyway, it's just so wild. And then also, so in 2007, Tim Ferriss put that, I think it's called geo arbitrage, where you move somewhere where your dollar goes further. So your dollar is worth 5 francs or something like that, like if you go to France. So you get 5 times more when you pay, when you use your dollar. So what happened was wealthier people decided to buy estates and stuff, in all these poorer countries. And then, what's that word? Gentrification happened. And so the locals are unable to live downtown. I mean, that gentrification was happening in the United States when I was in San Francisco. People were always talking about gentrification because you'd be in a, working class neighborhood, or, I guess a poor neighborhood or whatever. And then wealthier people would buy real estate, fix it up, and then the rents would increase so that locals couldn't afford to live there. And the thing is, what's interesting too is, like, roommates situations does not, like, that was a big thing in the 90s, you know, like Tim Ferriss talks about having roommates, and people knew how to live together or whatever, or there were systems. Like in San Francisco, there was this thing called roommate referral, where the house did an assessment of what they were looking for in a prospective roommate, and they told you what they're about, that they're smoking or they have pets and whatever. And as much as I like, I have friends who have pets, but I've never found it to be a good thing to live with people who have pets. It's just, it's disgusting. Um, and people don't take care of their animals. The animals have parasites. And I had one roommate who, after I moved out, I mean, it was like a year later or whatever, he passed away. And he had a cat that would defecate on the kitchen sink. I mean, on the stove and counters and stuff like that. And like that's cats scratch fever. I think, is it Bartonella? Anyways, it's one of these Lyme co-infections that causes psychiatric problems, causes health issues, and it causes mental health problems. I mean, any kind of chronic infection causes inflammation, and that inflammation can translate to your brain and your nervous system, and it causes behavioral issues. So, or if you're just constantly having joint pain, constant knee pain, constant foot pain, even if it's not in your brain, when you're under constant pain, it affects your behavior, it affects your quality of life. And yeah, some people can be happy go lucky, but others don't handle it well. So, but anyways, back to like this time capsule of Tim Ferriss, and it's a time capsule for me. I mean, I think he might be a little younger than me, but like the culture that I grew up in, after college, I relocated to San Francisco, and I had roommates in college. I had roommates when I was first in San Francisco, and I have seen the transition of our culture from in real life, and also like self-help oriented. Like, we were all trying to heal our wounds and be a better person and meditate and stuff like that. And now today, everybody's this activist. um, Everybody is taking this, like, is dogmatic, and I include myself now. Like, when, like, in 2020, I went to the grocery store, the local Aldi's, and I had gotten some food, some ripe avocados. And so this was right after the Floyd ritual. And so the lady who was angry because of what happened was being racist to me, and she threw my avocados into my bag. And I noticed, like, I had a close friend of mine who also did the same thing, like, was like, well, you deserve to have been assaulted by Black people. Like, you need to know what it's like for some reason. Like, and this is somebody who, like, it just boggles my mind that people who, Black people or whatever, think because I am white, I should be assaulted, that I should be terrorized, like, as if that is going to make things better. And this is a friend, excuse me, that I had for like 20 years, you know, 25 years or something like that. And this is the kind of person that I was talking with, that I cared about, that I, you know, and so it makes me realize, and what's interesting is everybody is allowed to be that way towards white people, towards white Gentiles. You can't do that towards the Zionist Israelis, um, the Khazarian mafia. You can't do that to them, because then they'll use their word, their kryptonite. But if you're a white Gentile, white Christian, all it's all whatever. You can do whatever you want. And so, I was like, well, that's not good. And even amongst white people, there's these infiltrators, these mimics, these toxic people who just want to hate somebody, whether it's to hate black people or to hate Israelis or whatever. And then not even knowing proper terms, that like Israelis are from Iraq and Ukraine, like they're Babylonian pagan descendants. And the Semites are the Arabs of Gaza. So, and then these people are saying, I'm anti Semitic. They're trying to declare that they are anti Semitic. But the Semites are the Arabs of Gaza, and these people never say bad things about Arabs of Gaza. What people are, when they're trying to claim to be anti Semitic, they're really anti satanic, because the Khazarian mafia, Babylonian pagan people did human sacrifice. That's what pagans do. Pagans do human sacrifice. And for like, and then it's child human sacrifice, and then there's all this other sketchy stuff that happens, and we're seeing this normalized because Christianity, the Bible, and morality is being considered as outdated, passe. But it's like how Christian civilization, Western civilization, Christendom, like that is how it's built. Because you can't build a strong bridge off of lies. You can't build a strong building that will withstand wind and earthquake off of lies. So you have to like, your builder has to have morality. Your architect has to have morality to be truthful, rather than some, evil person or goofball or whatever. Like, there has to be standards. You can't have standards without morality. So this current communist satanic assault that's been happening in the West, where people are like, well, I'm a lizard. I identify as a lizard. I identify as a wall. I identify as a season. I am now, the season of winter, and people are taking this legitimately. And so then, I mean, we're having just this massive destruction of civilization and humanity, and soon life itself, because of all of the terrible ecological impact of cell phones and solar panels and windmills. The mining that's done is through child slave labor in Africa and in the Congo. Okay, so you have your fancy smartphone or Apple device. Like, this is built on child slave labor or Chinese slave labor. And then people then claim to be an activist. They're like a PETA activist. I mean, the biggest hypocrites I've ever found were vegan PETA activists. They are incredible misanthropes. They hate humanity. And yet they're trying to have claim to have the moral superiority or the moral authority, when they are devoid of morality. And that's somehow that's hijacked our country. And I think, like, and just like constantly throughout the book, Tim Ferriss is talking about, or he's quoting people talking about how they're, people who fans of his books are saying, my friends, my family all say that it's crazy that I'm trying to do the 4-hour work week. And it's just constant, my friends, external identification. And I think it's like some type of NLP, suggestive programming, that Tim Ferriss is doing in his book, when has all these whatchamacallit, testimonies that he's quoting of people. I mean, it all sounds like the same person, basically. And of course, it could be original content, and he just had it edited for the proper, just so it flows right, whatever. But like, who do we know today, like that has like normal, like just people talking about all their friends and all their family and all this support and stuff like that. Like, it is a miracle if people have like two close friends that they're still able to talk with, and like talk with some friends deeply about. Like, everybody is all addicted to their phone, to porn, to weird new things, video games, um, like just looking, like listening to the audiobook from his, that he released in 2007, edited 2009. But I listened to the audiobook, after 2007. I can't believe, I mean, I was such a huge fan, so I must have, um, but like, I listened to that book when I guess right after it came out. Like, I listened to it all the time, and just the civilization, the society, the interpersonal stuff, uh, it makes me nostalgic, because today, even, I mean, I interact with women in their 60s and 70s or whatever, and they're total radicalized, like they hate America, they hate white people, um, even if they're patriots, strangely enough, like they'll or they're unconstitutional. And um I mean, it's really weird. We are in a very strange time period. It doesn't make sense. People are not like logical, and yeah, it's weird. I wish I could have been like appreciated being living in 2007, being you know just that experience. I mean, I guess for me, like the 90s were better. Um, but something happened. I don't know if it was, maybe it was the 5G, like the original, not 5G, but the original 1G, when cell phones were first introduced. Because I remember, like, it was, I don't know, was it 2000 or late 90s? But people would be on their mobile phones, and everybody in my health, like, we all knew that it had radiation in it, and we didn't want to be around it. But then, so phones were moved from the street. We used to have telephone booths, and landlines were expensive. Like, it was like $200 a month, some months, for the landline, if you were making long distance calls. And so, and then there would be these annoying telemarketers. Like, I had a landline until, I don't know, 2000, I don't know, maybe 2008, 2009 or something like that. But I got so many telemarketing calls like every minute. And I changed my landline phone number. And the next moment after the number was changed, I got a telemarketing call. And I tried looking into, like, who's in charge of the telecom industry, and regulating, like, holding telemarketers to account. And it seemed like it was the government, that, like, the government was working for telecom or something like that. So I felt like, and I still feel like, the government is involved in our harassment with telemarketing calls. I think it's part of some MK Ultra torture kind of thing. And which brings me back to why the 4-hour work week was so popular, was because the workplace is made so uncomfortable. It's torture. I feel so bad. Like, why do entry level employees not get to sit down? Why do they have to be on their feet for 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day or something like that? It doesn't make sense. It's not necessary. Um, and like, why are all lights fluorescent light? Why is air quality inside places so bad? Why is water so full of chemicals and, dissolved people's bodies and stuff like that? Like, why is everything so toxic and unlivable? Because the thing is, I made some of my best friends from work. Like, that's the strange thing about it. And like, I can't really say I loved my commute or my wait for the bus and stuff like that. And like, now there's like less buses, and now, in 2006 there's less bus service, less Greyhound bus service. There's more crazy people, like criminally insane, dangerous people that are out and about, and of course they're using um, more affordable public services. They're in the parks, harassing you for spare change, or being violent when on the bus. And drivers these days don't tell anybody to get off because of the anti-police riots in 2020. The police won't help. So, like, our world has declined rapidly, and I really am upset about that anti-police riot thing. Like, people don't realize that the what happened. And yeah, the police aren't perfect, and I know they work for municipalities. It's not for we the people. But like, criminals know that the police won't come, or they won't do anything now, that everything's kind of compromised. Like, we're in such a terrible reality right now, and it's sad. I grieve for the loss of this all. I mean, it's very biblical. The Bible told us this kind of thing would happen. Um, yeah, and it's just happened so quickly, in like 17 years. And I think it has something to do with like Obama and, even the Clintons, and of course, Biden, and even now with the current administration. Like, I do not know what is going on. It's like a psychological operation where one good thing happens and then a bad thing happens, and like, things do not make sense. There's not like continuity um, of what this administration is doing. And my pro-Trump friends are like, "Oh, just trust the plan. I believe him." And I want to trust the plan. I want things to happen, but like it got that one the president got their booster shot like a couple months ago, even though we know that people have died because of the toxicity, the luciferase and self-assembling nanotechnology, that graphene oxide that's in those injections. Like, no apologies, no acknowledgement about what that is. And what is so weird is the left is very pro injection, even though they hate Trump. Like, can somebody explain that to me? Like, that shows the psyop is so either people are very dumb, or there's some like technology that's been used on people that they're able, that, is it cognitive dissonance or something like that? And now the pro Trump people who are like, yeah, our president can kidnap other presidents. That other president was bringing drugs into the country. I mean, if that really mattered, then should the president of China be arrested? The president of Canada, because we get drugs, like illegal stuff that way. And like, why not arrest people who are trafficking kids? That still hasn't happened. So, like, people are saying, trying to make some moral rationalization, but then they're ignoring the million other consequences or logical, you know, parts. Like, so if you really want to stop what the poisoning of America, then we need to close down the FDA and the CDC and the AMA because they're poisoning. They're killing us. We know. RFK knows it's poison. He just can't say for some reason, or he's into the population control. So yeah, like the situation we were dealing with in 2007 when the 4-hour work week came out, it was just like just getting out of a toxic workplace. And the thing is also like with the 4-hour work week is about moving, right? But the thing is, when you're constantly moving, you don't have friends. You don't, you lose touch with your friends. You don't have neighbors because you're always moving in, and you're messing up the dynamics of the place that you move to. I mean, that's what happened. That's what's happened the past like 20 years is all these cheap places, in South America or Central America, Latin America, or Southeast Asia, or Europe, like Portugal and Spain. It's been gentrified. So all these wealthy people have moved in, and so the wealthy people, are able to spend $2,000 a month to be there, and then locals are they're living on $500 a month. And so then the invaders, the immigrants from wealthy Western countries, these immigrants gentrifies the place, raise the Mexico is like, go home tourist, go home gringo. So the immigrants from the West mess up the economy of these poor places. And so the immigrants from the West are like, I'm gonna live like a king. And and there's some people who are like, well, I'm just going to throw a bunch of money at local workers, or I'm going to start doing a nonprofit. Like, that's a new thing that I've noticed. And maybe it's not even new, but I'm just noticing it. So it's just new to me. But these immigrants from the West will start some sort of like nonprofit. And I think they're doing this in order to protect themselves for when these poorer countries get sick of tourists, get sick of Western gringo immigrants, and kick them out. Because we're seeing bad things like these golden visas increasing in certain countries. Like, it used to be like you could get your visa for $100,000. You could be there for 10 years, I guess. And so they keep on increasing. Then they're like, oh well, that's not good enough, so you have to invest 250,000 now. 10 years later. So they're just going to keep on upping the ante. Soon it'll be you pay $1 million, and then you can have 10 years here. So I think like some Western immigrants are trying to do nonprofits to help the locals, and maybe they mean well, and maybe it's a manipulative tactic to try to like, I helped you, so you should help me in the future, which it's effective. It's effective to do that. And that's, yeah. So my point was, though, that when you're constantly moving to make your dollar go further, you don't have like neighbors and friends that you see, for the past 5 years. And yeah, I have moved a lot. I get bored. And also there's just things that don't work for me in certain places. If I could, I would be living in San Francisco or New York if it wasn't taken over by criminally insane cannibals. Um, and I mean, I include the upper class creeps who are working for NGOs trying to, Marxist Satanists trying to destroy America. Like that's what's happening. That's where we're at right now. We have these trained Marxist activists in government as the trusted agents of the public good, gleefully trafficking little kids for the pleasure of perverts, and somehow thinking that I guess they've been hurt by Christianity or something like that, or hurt by somebody, but they just want to harm America and traditional culture or something like that. I don't get it. I don't understand why people are so like they want to hurt the most vulnerable, to try to get back at somebody. Like, I don't know, is this daddy issues I've heard people talk about? Because it does seem like it's women. But yes, there's plenty of, I think it's called a Chad, or like, I know them more as like a beta male. These are these estrogen dominant males that, you know, they're still masking. It's 2026. So they're addicted to oxygen deprivation, and they breathe in their body waste. They're doing their self harm. I really don't. I don't want to be around these people who are doing public self harm, but that's where we are. And the time when Tim Ferriss is talking about 2007 and how crummy it was in the workplace, all these, all his testimonials of people, sick of the workplace. And where we are now is like 1,000 times worse. I mean, who would have guessed that people are like, you shouldn't breathe freely. You should suffocate yourself because I'm scared. And that's in this like I'm scared business. Like, don't get me started on that. Like when they don't like what you have to say, when you have a different perspective or even a legitimate perspective, the MO of these Marxist activists is, you're threatening me, call the police. Like that's what I have encountered at the local library here, where I was harassed. And like the Marxist activist was trying to make it seem like I was being harmful when I was having a discussion, when I was trying to figure out why she was doing security reports on me without ever telling me what I was doing wrong. So this is where we're at right now. Like somebody like me, not that you know me, but like we're in such a terrible time in civilization, and it's probably only going to get worse. And it's just like, it's almost painful to listen to Tim Ferriss's book, because even the bad things he's talking about were so much better than it is today. Like, and the thing is, in the past, in 2007, we had friends, and they, even though they may have been PETA activists, or they may have been weirdos, doing watching porn, sketchy stuff, but we still had friends, and there was still this, like, reaching out, and there's a capacity for human interaction. And now there's no capacity. For the most part, people do not have the capacity to relate. They've lost it. It's atrophied. And that's what, it's just so sad. And so all people do now, since they don't have the capacity to relate, to have a dialogue, or just chill out, now people have been like weaponized, and they're like, I'm an activist. I'm an activist to, I'm an activist for the criminal cannibal illegals who have crossed our border. So people are that activist. Or they're an activist that they hate all of one demographic, which I think that's not going to help the situation. Like, just being hateful and violent. What does that ever build? You're just a loose cannon. And the thing is, when you're when you tell the person who's hateful, that wants to eliminate, they're just angry, hateful, they just want to eliminate, Israel or Africa or something like that. And if you challenge them, or if you're like, you know, like if you say that something's not right, then they turn it on you. So, like they try to promote themselves as pro-white or something like that, but then they could be dangerous. So I don't, I'm, you know, I'm not into the very hateful person, just like unhinged hateful person. And so what this past several years since the anti-police riots, it's called BLM, but it was really anti-police riots, which has left us vulnerable, because now, police can't get involved. It seems, because it's just this weird, like the only time I've seen police involved where some like inebriated, fragile, elderly white guy was arrested. That's the only time I saw police involved here, and I'm in Arkansas, because that fragile, elderly white guy who was drunk with a cowboy hat, you know, he's not going to do anything. So the police know they can pick on that. So, and here I'm in Northwest Arkansas, so the university is like, now they're flying Iranian flags. Now, I'm not into what's going on. I don't, I think what's going on in Iran is Mossad. I think Israel is trying to destabilize the Middle East. And I, in 2007, 2008, 2000, I was not up on global affairs. I was not tribal. But what's happened is Israel, Mossad, Shabbat, whatever, there's been an attack, and it's an attack on Christendom. And so and I'm no expert in world affairs, but it has become clear that Mossad, this Shabbat, Illuminati, Freemasonic thing, is orchestrating the destruction of Christendom, and the betrayal of friends, of Black friends, saying that I deserve to be harmed, and also betrayal of like or bad behavior of certain Caucasians, like, so not I'm not I don't think, and I have never thought like, oh, I mean, so if you've got a sketchy vibe, I don't care what color you are. I think you have a sketchy vibe. You can, if you're Asian, if you're white, if you're Black, Arab, if you've got a sketchy vibe, like, it doesn't matter what color you are. So yeah, so I have become more tribal, but it's not just like any white person, or because like white people totally love to betray their own. Like, that's the biggest thing here. It's like these Marxist activist trained activists, Satanists at the library or at the hospital, or whatever, insurance or something like that. Like, they're just like, there's hate. Like, hate is an employment requirement, it seems like. So yeah, maybe that's what I've missed all my life when I was trying to find jobs. I just sincerely wanted to help people, be a resource, support people. And maybe that's why I never got hired. I didn't hate enough. Seriously, and maybe that's why the workplace was so miserable, not just for me, because if we look at, the reason why the 4-hour work week was so popular was because everybody found the workplace unbearable and people insufferable for the most part. But the thing is, even though people were insufferable in 2007, like, there were enough people that made it okay, because there were fun things to do. There was astronomy clubs or UFO clubs or, movie nights, and, there were things to do, dance clubs and art exhibits and stuff like that. Um, and things were lively, busy. There were shops. Like now, after the anti-police riots, otherwise known as BLM, that was going on, so people didn't need masks when they were fighting the police. They didn't need to suffocate themselves or worry about the scamdemic. But if you're with your friends, or family at Christmas, then you have to worry. Like, it was such a childish, dumb psychological operation, and everybody should have known better. Like, there were people who knew that this was wrong, that this was messed up, and there were people with leverage who could have overthrown this tyranny that occurred. But the thing is, the tyranny was successful. Um, and it was successful once, and so the tyrants are like, they're just waiting to do it again. And because I think the majority of people knew that there was no scamdemic. They just had common sense. Your life experience tells you, like, I don't feel sick. My family, yeah, okay, maybe somebody has the sniffles, maybe somebody has the flu. We always had that all our lives. We lived through the flu. We lived through whatever, some really bad sickness that took you out for a week. But like now, if you sneeze, maybe not so much now, but in like 2020, 2021, if I had to blow my nose, I was paranoid. People would be worried, you know, scared and stuff like that. And the thing is, like, I didn't know anybody who got sick in 2020. Like, people had allergies, people had colds, people had the stomach flu. I had the stomach flu, but it was over in like an hour, a couple hours or something like that. Um, so, like, we all really should have known better in 2020. I mean, we didn't have any reference point. We didn't have any practice. We didn't have any guidelines of how to fight tyranny. Um, and hopefully we do now. And, we need to claw back to our original humanity. We need to be friends and interact in real life. Like in the 4-hour work week, everything's like, oh, it's all automated, and you hire your virtual assistant in Asia or wherever, the USA or whatever. And, like, it's all automated, and you're not interacting with people, and you're only interacting with people in your hobby that you're doing, your whatever, your martial arts. Or and I mean, I totally love, the idea of like taking martial arts classes or dance classes or piano lessons and stuff like that. But I'm sure Tim Ferriss knows this too, because he is going somewhere to be in person for a reason. Okay, there's something very powerful, very important about things being in person. Um and it's like, having everything automated. It's trying to making a living, you know like, automated, without a thought. But the thing is, like, there's a reason humans are here. Like, it's as if, let's just make robots make our money for us. Have the algorithm make our money for us. And yes, that seems to be happening with some people on YouTube. The algorithm makes their money, makes money for content creators, and then for some reason overnight, the algorithm kills your channel. Like, I have heard, and that was happening with Google. What was it? I forget what year, but a lot of bloggers, like people who had a blog, that when, like, the search engine, like Google, changed the algorithm, and so people who had, like, I don't know, a million views a month went down to 1,000 or whatever, and so they lost revenue. And that's happened recently. I hear that with YouTube, is the algorithm will love a content creator, and then they fall off a bridge, and the YouTuber will lose, 75% of their income. So that's the thing. Is like you have robots making your money for you, but it pulls the rug out from under you whenever it wants. And like, are you prepared for that? And I think like, so Tim Ferriss, he, his book, I don't know if it was for like scrappy people. I think the title of the book appeals to entry level workers. A 4-hour work week. Yeah, if we could work hard for 4 hours, you know, we'd love that. But when you really look into who he selected for his testimonials and who he selects to work with, it's usually these like upper echelon, more fancy, wealthy people. So it's like it's these rich people who just like want an easier rich life, I guess, is really the more accurate title of the book. Is like, you know, rich people, let's be richer. And he starts off the book, my parents didn't, only made $50,000 between the two of them, so I started off as a poor person. But he's how you make money is get rich people to work with you, because that's who he's working with. He's not working with like the cashier at the grocery store. Oh wait, he wouldn't give them the time of day. And back to the in-person thing, the in real life thing, the reason why Tim Ferriss has his automated work is so he can go in person and take a Tony Robbins class or whatever. Like, what's the most important thing is being in real life. Like, that's where you're going to get the most improvement, is the power of being around people. Like, when you're an isolated single person, and sometimes you'll go to the store, or like, this is for me, I'll go to the store or restaurant or something like that, and it's just to kind of get around a different energy. I mean, now like the energy at stores and restaurants are kind of like, music is so loud, there's blue light just zapping you everywhere, and the electromagnetics from the 5G and whatever else, everybody's mobile phone, it's so unpleasant. So it's like it's really tough being out in public these days. Um, but sometimes it's just nice to interact with somebody. Sometimes there's just a pleasant vibe at the store, at the register, or something like that. And so there's just something about being in person. There's only, like, you can be solitary, but it doesn't really, like, you can't have the same kind of like almost electrochemical, or maybe it is electrochemical. There's like an electrical exchange or something when you go and you have something pleasant, pleasant interaction with somebody um, in person, in real life. So my question, so in Tim Ferriss's book, he has a story about this millionaire who goes to this tropical island and talks to this guy who's a fisherman, and the millionaire tells the fisherman, you should buy 10 boats and make $1 million, and establish accounts and run your business worldwide. And so the fisherman's like, oh, okay, and then what will I do? And the millionaire says, well, then you can retire to a tropical island and do a little fishing and be with your family. And basically, the millionaire is telling the fisherman, if he does all this, crazy business stuff, he can have the life he already has. And it's almost um, like looking at Tim Ferriss's book in retrospect, it's like So the crummy work life that people had in 2007 and before, because obviously he must have written a book in like 2006 if it was published in 2007, or he wrote it in 2004. I know it takes a while for books to get published. But the crummy life that all of those employees had, and so they're all writing when they write their testimonials. It's all from their honeymoon period. Um, but like if those people who wrote their romanticized, oh, my life is so much better, I'm like living in Japan with my new wife, blah blah blah, and I work from home and for a mega company, a million and whatever mega company. But like if we ask those people who did their honeymoon testimonials, um, is their life better now than it was then? Like, was everything better then that it is now? I think they would say everything was better then in 2006 and 7 than it is now. Like, did all of these people leaving the workplace disrupt our culture? Because I entered the workplace in the 90s, and um there was a like an exodus happening by then. Like, people were starting their own businesses because the workplace was just insufferable. Like, again, I don't know if people were having a hard time with the chemicals being used, the off gassing of floors and carpets and paints and computers and the fluorescent lights. It's just all very toxic. And yet we're supposed to marinate in it 8, 9 hours a day, and the commute and the cost of living. And so people in the 90s were leaving. And also what was happening is employees were letting go of employees, or when an employee left, they wouldn't hire for that position. And so they would have one person do three people's jobs. So employers were really exploiting employees. So the best employees left. The best employees were better at interpersonal relations and negotiation, and they were skilled and stuff like that. So they left the workplace. And so what was left was people who didn't know how to defend themselves, and that was me. I didn't know how to ask for raises and set boundaries, and I didn't know what limits were. Like, I was given like accounting stuff, and I didn't know accounting. So, um, so we didn't have, there wasn't like really capable people in the workplace, it seems to me, in the 90s. It was all just like, we're all kind of dumb, you know, just we're just trying to make a living, and employers were like, we're going to exploit you. We're going to just squeeze every last bit of blood out of you. And so the workplace was changing in the 90s, or it had changed, and so the better people, the more capable people who would have kept bad employers in check, left. They just were like, I'm not going to fight this battle, because you're battling like a large, publicly traded stock, traded company who had battalions of attorneys and influence and stuff like that. So, can't blame people for leaving the corporate America. And just corporate America became more abusive just because there was um, nothing stopping it, basically. And so then it just became insufferable, and people just were like, I'm leaving. I want to. The people wanted some like a 4-hour work week, not this 40-hour nightmare. And so then people moved to poorer countries where their dollar could stretch. And then with gentrification, Westerners, wealthier Westerners, made it so that, you know, places in Mexico City or Asia or whatever, in Europe, everything, the prices went up, and so locals could not keep up with the Western, like how powerful the Western dollar was. So yeah, it's like, is this some sort of deliberate monopoly game thing that happened that, um, the workplace was made, um, insufferable, and, rents were made too difficult, housing was made too difficult, so that made people in the West move somewhere else, and which then raised the prices in the global South, where Westerners moved to. And then those countries that Westerners moved to are hating tourists now because tourists are gentrifying their place. It's just this weird, um, crisis, and it feels, maybe I wonder if it's deliberate, and I just don't know, like, what are we supposed to do? I mean, I think, we have to have a relationship with God, and I do think that we need to, instead of automating everything, and I know it's convenient, um, but I think we need to interact with people. I think and I don't even know how do we have our, you know, just go back to a more, what's the proper term? Like, rural or ancient way. Like, I'm gonna churn butter and I'm gonna sell butter. And with the money I sell my butter with, I'm gonna pay my rent or something like that. Like, I think we need to go back to a more simple time. And I know that's seems unreasonable. Maybe it is, but I think that might be a better life. But the thing is, there's like also these predators in culture where, I mean, we read this in classic literature all the time. There's like these predators who prey upon the vulnerable, and nobody really seems to help the vulnerable person. And they're just like, you figure it out, vulnerable person that's exploited and abused. And yeah, it's a really messed up situation we have. I don't know. But, I'm also speaking from, an American perspective. Maybe other countries do it better. Maybe Southeast Asia, some Buddhist countries, maybe they handle it better. Um, or maybe things are better than I realize here in the United States. So yeah, I am, using some generalizations in my descriptions just as a conversation, talking out loud kind of situation here. So, what do you guys think? Have you ever read The 4 Hour Work Week and recently? And do you see my point? Thanks for watching. God bless.